The very fact that India Today has had me for 10 years on a primetime show is in itself a sign that thoda to pushback hua hai. It can't be easy.
Would you want to elaborate on that? We have Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai in the house. Everybody a quick round of applause, please.
Narendra Modi and I, our careers parallel in a way. He's of course gone up there. Hamara yahi raha. That's the only difference.
2024 has been a marathon of elections.
This is the most relentless, ruthless and remorseless election machine in the history of post-independent India.
Many people call it the victory of Hindutva.
One of the tragedies of this country in the last 30 years, जो हिंदू हित की बात करेगा वही देश पे राज करेगा.
It's the othering of minorities and specifically Muslims.
Love jihad, land jihad, क्या jihad रह गए? And Umar Khalid for 4.5 years, nobody stands up for him. Arnab Goswami, courts open up for him on a Saturday. Rape takes place at RG Kar. God forbid if the rapist was a Muslim. God forbid.
Hasn't the media also played a huge part in propagating these narratives? Anchors, journalists also from your network who are accused of bias.
Ironically, your network has a fact-checking department as well.
Amit Malvi, he was sending offensive messages on WhatsApp as well.
You're now asking a question which is pushing me into an ethical minefield.
Hello from Quint and Quint Hindi. This is the 36th episode of Badi Badi Baatein and we have Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai in the house. Everybody a quick round of applause, please. Thank you. Welcome to the Quint and Quint Hindi.
Ishwar, thank you for having me here and lovely to see a very young audience. I saw there are only 2 people here who are born after 1988, which is the year I joined journalism. So it's good to see a young, vibrant newsroom.
Absolutely. This is the last episode of Badi Badi Baatein for this year, for 2024. 2024 has been a marathon of elections. You have written a book on 2024. So I could not have asked for a better guest for the concluding episode of this year. So thank you so much for doing this. The election that surprised India, it obviously surprised India, but you have, I think 36 years of your career, you have covered so many elections. Which election did you find the most interesting and why?
In terms of general elections?
Yes.
In terms of general elections, each election is very special. And as a bit of a nostalgia buff, the first election always matters. I remember 1989 covering VP Singh as he was going on a road show through Mumbai. I was very excited. And, that was the Battle of Bofors. That was also the first election, by the way, where the BJP emerged. And I think that was fascinating. 1991, Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, bang in the middle of the elections. That changed the complexion of that poll. So every election, I can go on and on. Out of the 10 general elections that I've covered. In terms of surprises, I would say 2004 and this election in 2024 were the 2 surprises in terms of outcomes. You'd have to measure these 2. I don't think anyone expected Mr. Vajpayee not to become Prime Minister in 2004. I think everyone expected the BJP to win big in 2024. And neither happened. I think Mr. Modi can claim that at least, unlike Mr. Vajpayee, he's not out of power. But just think about it. Had Odisha, it's one of the what-ifs. If Odisha had not voted the way they were, which was primarily because of the Pandian factor, and had Nitish Kumar remained within the India alliance, you could have had a very different election in 2024. So I think these 2 surprised me, but every election, I find some joy or the other in every Indian election. It's a great chance to go out, meet people and find out what the voter wants. Look, let's give Mr. Modi credit also, because this year most incumbents across the world have lost. 65 elections were held across the world, I think, across democracies. And more than 50 of the incumbents have lost. So Mr. Modi survived. And therefore, it's a very strange election. He survived. In a strange way, the opposition also survived. So we're not sure who won and who lost. I like to say in the book that the voter won. This is the most, Ishwar, I think the good news is this is still the most diverse country in the world at the moment. So what is true about one part of the country may not be true of the other. In all the focus on Maharashtra, we've forgotten that the BJP lost Jharkhand.
Yeah.
Right? And Hemant Soren scored a big victory. In all the focus on Haryana, we forgot the fact that in Jammu and Kashmir, the opposition won.
Like you said, it's difficult to say who won and who lost the 2024 general election. And there was something very interesting that Mr. Chidambaram said at the launch of the book, that the electorate has largely moved right. But there is also a school of thought which thinks that it was in fact, the opposition's performance was in fact a pushback to this fact that the electorate has moved right. Which one do you think it is?
Make no mistake, Ishwar, I think politics has moved to the right in this country. By and large, like it or not, the BJP is the dominant party of this country. Today they are in power in what, more than a dozen states of this country on their own, with their allies a few more. And those are big numbers. The fact is that the BJP consistently has scored big in some of the major states of the country. They are in power in UP twice. They've been the number one party in Maharashtra 3 consecutive elections. They've been in power or power sharing in Bihar, barring small spells when Nitish does a somersault. And Mr. Modi is a 3-time Prime Minister, the first since Jawaharlal Nehru. So the center of gravity of Indian politics has shifted to the right. But I still think India is far too diverse to suggest that the BJP is a hegemonical party that can win elections in every corner of India, unlike the Congress in the past. In the past, when, in the 60s in particular, the Congress, would triumph in every corner of India. The BJP still finds it difficult to truly penetrate the deep south. It still has resistance in pockets of the east. But it is party number one, and that's not changing for a while.
The BJP said they will go 400 par. That obviously did not happen. But despite the mandate that they have, nothing has really changed. Everybody, they were like, they will be more mellow and blah, blah, blah. But nothing has really changed. They're as fierce as they were used to be. In fact, they've started fighting elections more strongly. And that is being cited as one of the reasons behind the Haryana and Maharashtra wins. Many people call it the victory of Hindutva. Do you think it is that?
Look, I don't think any one factor decides elections in India anymore. Firstly, let me say this. This is the most relentless, ruthless and remorseless election machine in the history of post-independent India, and resource-rich. आपके पास सब है. Like the Diwar dialogue, मेरे पास माँ है. I sometimes wonder what the opposition does have. The BJP is like a Ferrari and the Congress is like a Fiat. When you look at the two, purely as machines, there's no comparison at the moment. So you've got to keep that in mind when you raise this question about, the BJP and Hindutva. Hindutva is one element of it. A friend of mine had a nice word, Hind. H for Hindutva, I for infrastructure, N for nationalism, D for delivery. And somewhere in these 4 boxes, you find something which might make the BJP attractive today. One of the tragedies of this country in the last 30 years, and particularly since I've covered this, this period in time, has been how we have normalized this politics of Hindu majoritarianism. जो हिंदू हित की बात करेगा वही देश पे राज करेगा was what I heard when I joined journalism in 88-89 in that 89 campaign. That time we thought it was a marginal force. Now 35 years later I hear even polite society saying Hindu की party है, Hinduओं की party है, and nobody seems to object in the room. They seem to be okay with the fact that this is a Hindu country. That's the change that's taken place. And the BJP has taken full, the very forces that rose in 89 and beyond are the ones who are ruling us today. I mean, Narendra Modi and I, our careers parallel in a way. He has, of course, gone up there. Hamara yahi raha. That's the only difference. But I met him in 1990 for the first time at the Rath Yatra. And if you had asked me then that he'd be a 3-time Prime Minister, I don't think I'd say yes. But look, I think he has been able to capture this zeitgeist, if I may use that, this mood for change and this assertion of a Hindu identity much more than any other leader in this period has. And that's his success.
So you mean the politics of the fringes that you saw at the beginning of your career has now become mainstream?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if Yogi Adityanath was doing politics in 89, we would have called him a fringe figure. He's now mainstream. I remember when Bal Thackeray would talk this language, he had judicial verdicts being imposed against him. He was even banned by the courts. Contrast that with today. Today, far more vile, direct, hateful speeches are made. And people get away with it time and again. And I think that normalization has brought the fringe to the mainstream. That's worrying.
Talking about the Haryana and Maharashtra results, like you said, there is narrative, there is sympathy, there is lots of factors other than Hindutva. To an extent, for example, in a state like Maharashtra, these factors for the opposition were very strong. The impact of which was seen in the Lok Sabha elections of Maharashtra, for example. What do you think went so massively wrong in 6 months with the opposition's narrative, the sympathy factor for Mr. Pawar and Uddhav Thackeray, the vote jihad narrative that Mr. Fadnavis peddled so strongly? Where did the opposition fall short in Maharashtra and Haryana in 6 months' time?
Maharashtra is interesting because while you look at, the opposition won 30 Lok Sabha seats out of 48 and the BJP-led alliance 17. Yeah. In vote share, they were the same.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? So there was no major change in vote share. And I think sometimes the biggest mistake, the biggest problem for the opposition is the moment they win, they think apna time aa gaya. Forgetting that every election is different to the other. And apna time nahi aaya tha. You have to work at it. The BJP worked and course corrected. They brought in Ladki Bahin, Tijori Kholo. They opened the treasuries of Maharashtra. All kinds of schemes were announced, many of which involved direct cash benefits, like Ladki Bahin. 1,500 rupees a month, 7,500 by October, including Diwali bonus. Yeah. I mean, every woman I met, no one had a bad word to say about Eknath Shinde. In April, May, I met a lot of people who said, Khoke ki sarkar hai, khoke lete hai. Nobody talked about Khoke chi sarkar. That's how you change the narrative. The stories of these 12,000 booths that they focused on, made every effort through Mahila Vistaraks, through holding small corner meetings. That level of micro planning, I don't think the opposition could match. Opposition through July, August, September spent all the time, main banuga Mukhyamantri. Who will be the chief minister? When they should have had a counter ready to Ladki Bahin and gone harder perhaps at the flaws in the Shinde government, which are many, right? The very fact that you need to give 1,500 rupees means that there is distress on the ground. Right? So you needed to push your own narrative equally strongly. I think the opposition made the cardinal mistake that all parties made this year, which is got overconfident. Narendra Modi ji and the BJP were slightly overconfident of 2024 Lok Sabha, paid a price. Bhupinder Singh Hooda and the Congress were very confident, even deciding kisko kaun se portfolio milenge, lost out in Haryana. And the same thing happened in Maharashtra. There is no place for complacency in politics now. This is very competitive. It's aggressive plus money power, boss. Bahut paisa aaya hai.
Not a level playing field.
Not at all a level. In fact, my book primarily is about that, to show how not a level playing field it is. Money power has skewed it. Institutional power, enforcement agency. I mean, enforcement agencies in this country only work in opposition-ruled states. BJP mein money laundering nahi ho raha hai. With Modi, Shah, you have to fight with the same energy that they fight elections. And for that, you need the right people in the right places. You cannot tolerate mediocrity anymore. The old style Congress politics ab nahi chalega. Wo iska dost hai, uska dost hai, usko bhi accommodate kar do. And I keep saying in Congress, sometimes nothing succeeds like failure. Jitna aap haro, utna nahi usko accommodate kar lo. Because he's not a competitor. Someone succeeds, he becomes a competitor. And I have this great story in the book about Amit Shah. Ye to abhi nahi sikha, usne 1980s mein sikha hai. He was contesting an election for college. And the candidate against him was a woman. And the class had half women, half men. Now the worry was the women will all vote for the girl. What did they do? Pre-mobile age. They rang up all the women's parents and told them, don't send your daughters tomorrow to college. Tufan hone wala. There's going to be some trouble in the college. 30 women were absent. Amit Shah won by 10 or 12 votes. ये वहां से शुरू हुआ है. महाराष्ट्र में एक कंस्टिट्यूएंसी में एक लड़का है, आर पाटिल, फॉर्मर होम मिनिस्टर सन रोहित पाटिल. 4 रोहित पाटिल को इंडिपेंडेंट खड़ा किया. एंड दे वर लुकिंग लाइक रोहित पाटिल आल्सो. उसी तरह से स्पेक्स लगा के वो. आई मीन, थिंक अबाउट द लेवल टू विच यू विल गो टू माइक्रो प्लानिंग. ये तो अलग लेवल है.
Because we are talking about a level playing field. Every time an election concludes and when the opposition loses, the narrative of EVM, vote rigging, EVM tampering, it comes into play. Do you believe that EVMs can be tampered or manipulated or rigged or messed around with in this country during an election?
Look, I am not a technical man, so I'm not going to go into the technicalities of it, but 2 points. One, most importantly, election commission in this country has lost credibility. So people think the worst about them. लोगों को लगता है कुछ तो होगा ये election, because we have lost all faith in institutions. I liken it in the book to Pakistan's umpires. In the 1980s, nobody, even if the Pakistan umpire was a good umpire, we thought he's a cheat. So that part of the problem with the election commission is perceptional. BJP wale will say that or wo Congress ke time pe isi koi alag nahi tha, which may also be true. And Congress people will think the worst. But I'm thinking of middle ground, democratically minded citizens have a huge problem with EC. On EVM specifically, there are experts who are talking about, for example, the symbol loading unit. And while the EVM is an independent unit and therefore they say cannot be hacked, it's not connected to some wider Wi-Fi internet, the VVPAT and the storage, the symbol loading unit could be possibly used. Now, unless we have an independent, and I stress the word independent, group of experts monitoring this and doing a proper audit after every election. Audit honi chahiye. इस देश में कोई कमी है क्या of top people who can audit, whether you will get the EVMs audited often by the same people who have themselves made the EVMs. Get it done by neutral, independent experts. दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी. Look, today the opposition, I think, sometimes uses EVMs to cover up their own incompetence. हम चुनाव हार गए, अरे EVM ने करवाया. And public doesn't believe by and large, while many people don't trust the EVMs, they also don't like you to, don't trust the ECI, Election Commission. They also don't want you to be seen as people, rote hue, you're crying every time you lose an election.
Speaking of the integrity of the Election Commission, hate speeches पे MCC में action लिया जाएगा, वो तो हमने शायद उम्मीद छोड़ ही दी है अभी. But there are other things, like for example, what we saw in Kundarki recently in the UP by polls. People being stopped from voting, people being threatened from voting. When issues like these are not addressed by the Election Commission head on, the opposition keeps raising those issues and nobody is there to listen. The judiciary is not really taking any cognizance. The appointment of the Election Commission of India has largely been watered down and diluted. What is the way out of this for the common voters?
Look, I think you've hit the nail on. You see, it's not EVMs. To my mind, the first thing has to start with voter lists. The manner in which, as I just mentioned to you, voters' names are added and deleted. This is a major issue. It needs a proper audit again. You're absolutely right. All these questions we raise, but the institution that should act as checks and balances are not. The Supreme Court, frankly, just doesn't seem to want to get into any issue where they may have to challenge the government's view. So the Supreme Court has by and large been supine or has absolutely abdicated what I think its responsibility should be. What I'm saying, it should be said by the Supreme Court, audit karwao. Why does the election, because only when the Supreme Court says it will the ECI listen. Like it was with electoral bonds. It required the Supreme Court for them to wake up to electoral bonds. And what could go wrong with them? Otherwise we would have carried on as business as usual. So Supreme Court needs to intervene. Someone needs to wake up. The Supreme Court, shake karna padega. Dusra, media. I mean, sometimes when I say all this, people send me, "Arey, tum kya kar rahe ho?" Media wale. And they're right. But I'm not the Election Commission of India, right? I can only point out what needs to be done. And I think the opposition also is going to have to find a better way in which they can take that case. Not easy being an opposition leader in India. Having said that, हम बहुत opposition को कोसते हैं, उनको सवाल पूछते हैं, but करे क्या? I'm not saying ballot box is the way forward. I was there, a young journalist. I covered an election in the early 90s in Mumbai where ballot boxes were being stuffed in front of us. We took photographs. It was pre-TV. Took photographs. Election was countermanded. ऐसा नहीं है कि ballot box के ज़माने में सब कुछ ठीक था. But at least we need to have some transparency.
I'm going to come back to the question on media. But before that, I want to get to a very, very huge weapon that the current regime uses and this particular party uses. It's the othering of minorities and specifically Muslims. Over the past 10 years, we have seen narratives like Gauraksha, cow vigilantism, love jihad,
Corona jihad. Corona jihad is contained.
Exactly.
Corona jihad, I've said it in my book.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that you are holding some tabligis responsible to be corona carriers and vegetable vendors were not allowed in the houses as a result? Yeah. And when the Kumbh Mela takes place, and I've given the full description of that in the book. Kumbh Mela hota hai COVID-2 ke pehle. With chief minister and all, nobody observing social distancing. Kisi ne unko kaha, corona carriers ho aap. Yeah. Prime Minister and other leaders are addressing rallies. All parties. Prime Minister, Mamata Banerjee, all addressing rallies in Bengal. for the election, COVID 2 के पहले, किसी ने उनको कहा, you are corona carriers?
So there's basically jihad being found in everything.
Yes.
Right? And at the same time, now this is something which is being propagated politically. We also see the social repercussions of it. We have seen so many these instances in the recent past where Muslims are being denied housing. It's not that it had not been happening, but to make it happen so blatantly. The BJP has not fielded any single Lok Sabha candidate. The Congress in Lok Sabha of Maharashtra did not field a single Muslim candidate. So, do you think the secular parties failed to stand up?
There are two. Let's look at it from both perspectives. One, the secular perspective. Clearly, secular parties, as you rightly said, have perhaps failed to offer a consistent challenge to the march of Hindutva. And they have run with the secular hare and hunted with the communal hound. I mean, I again go back to that first election, 1989. Rajiv Gandhi ने अपनी campaign अयोध्या से शुरू की थी in 1989. And over the years, every attempt was made in a way to placate extremist views on all sides. And we have paid a price today. A lot of the problems of today go back to 1989. जब से मैंने पत्रकारिता in a way शुरू की, I've seen the manner in which secular parties have exposed themselves over the last 35 years. So, but that is a story well known. They've exposed themselves. They did play vote bank politics. The Shah Banu judgment was a good example of playing vote bank politics, a bad example rather, of playing vote bank politics which was exploited by the BJP to emerge out of 2 seats in 84. So there is a dark history of playing communal politics, of instigating one group against the other in a way. But I also think that let's not use that as an excuse or alibi for what communal politics has done. Yes, secular politics has failed. Agreed. Does that justify the rise or the normalization of communal politics or the toxic politics that we are seeing at times play out in this country? Does it justify, as you rightly said, the manner in which Muslims can feel victimized and demonized consistently? Does it justify that? It's almost as if, "Arey, aap log fail ho gaye, isliye." It's not just that. There has been a concerted attempt to normalize the worst form of communal politics in which political parties have played a role, civil society has played a role, social media has played a role. And it's very tragic. Courts have allowed it to pass. Institutions have completely abdicated their responsibility. So there are no checks and balances. Someone can call for an economic boycott of a community today in a particular part of the country. No one is going to say a word against that person. And therefore, I think that, secular politics failure is a given. Chalo, given. As you've given examples. But there is something more that has happened. The rise of assertive Hindutva is not an answer to, let's say, minority extremism. Reject both forms of extremism, I'm saying. Let's be honest, even after 47, these forces have existed. It was Nehru and Patel. We often forget, even Vallabhbhai. Today he is used, appropriated, but Vallabhbhai was very clear. He's a Gandhi's disciple. Vallabhbhai is not Godse's disciple. Vallabhbhai is Gandhi's disciple. Pushed to the test, Vallabhbhai would never allow someone to be killed on the basis of their religion. Today you have allowed that to happen in this country, in the name of love jihad, in the name of, Gau Raksha, in the name of even Corona jihad, as I said, used to discriminate land jihad. Kya jihad reh gaye? There's no more left.
But at the same time...
Sorry to get emotional.
No, absolutely not. At the same time, hasn't the media also played a huge part in propagating these narratives? You have, for example, I do not see any mainstream media anchor or senior journalists in this country who are largely with the TV media right now, standing up for people like Mohammad Zubair or Siddiqui Kappan, or if a Shraddha Wadkar case happens, the religion of the perpetrator makes it a sensitive story. But when an equally gruesome crime happens somewhere else, it is not talked about. So do you not think the so-called mainstream media today is also feeding off of the hate that is clearly selling?
Two things. First of all, you are now asking a question which is deeply, which is pushing me into an ethical minefield and is problematic. Plus, who is mainstream? You guys are mainstream. Who is to say who is mainstream today?
That's why I said so-called mainstream.
Yeah, who is to say who is mainstream? But, I write in this book openly. And, I'll be honest, when I wrote that last chapter on the media, I was wondering, should I write it while I'm in the media or quit it? Because how honest can you be? I've tried to be as honest. Siddiq Kappan you mentioned. I have a full thing about him in the book. Umar Khalid, Zubair, others. You're absolutely right. A terrible rape takes place at RG Khan. God forbid if the rapist was a Muslim. God forbid. Look at what would have happened. The kind of reaction. Terrible gang rapes take place in different parts of the country. Are we going to define the scale of the crime based on the religion of the perpetrator? I mean, there can be nothing more awful than that. And yes, you're absolutely right. The mainstream media has fed into this narrative. And that is where my anger and disillusionment with the media comes. How can we as journalists normalize hate? How can we, I can understand some extremist voice doing it. We are supposed to provide guidance. We are supposed to be a moral compass. And yes, social media has worsened it. But television media also has much to answer for. I'm not going to stand here and claim I'm different. I'm a part of that wider television mainstream media. Kusurwar hum bhi hai. मैं कोई यहाँ, I cannot say that maybe I've not done it. Maybe I've failed. Maybe I accept it. And in my darker moments, I've wondered, what the hell am I doing? Because this is where you draw the line. आप बाकी जो आपको कहना है, पाकिस्तान bashing करो, जो आपको करना है. But where you draw the line is against your own people. And you pit people one against the other based on these completely flawed notions of religious identity. I mean, you use the right example about, crime. Basic crime is committed. How can the perpetrator's religious identity put the entire community in the dock? How can I put a community in the dock कि 300-400 साल पहले किसी मंदिर को तोड़ के मस्जिद बनाया था? Am I responsible for what happened 400 years ago? जब आप कहते हो बाबर की औलाद, ये क्या है? And I again in 89 when I heard this Babar ki aulad, jo Hindu, I thought it was all fringe elements. Maybe it was something went wrong with my education. आजकल बोलते हैं आप बड़े liberal education में गए थे. Even being a liberal today is seen as a गाली. आप anti-national है. आप उमर खालिद की तरफदारी के थे. But look at it, Ishwar. And Umar Khalid for 4.5 years, nobody stands up for him, right? In the case, which is a very weak case. I mean, I've gone through it in the book, and it's a weak case. Now contrast it with my friend Arnab Goswami. Courts open up for him on a Saturday to get bail. He should also get bail. Bilkul milna chahiye. Bail, not jail, should be there. Whether you're Arnab Goswami, whether you're Mohammad Zubair, whether you're Disha Ravi. Please think about, I was very disturbed when I got sedition charges put against me in 2021. Then I met Disha Ravi. And I looked at this small girl and I said, she's an anti-national. That the great Delhi police, supposed to be the best police in the country at one time, along with Mumbai, goes all the way to Bangalore to pick her up, saying she's part of what? Toolkit. Kya sala mazak bana rakha hai desh ko. What about someone had FIRs filed against him for exposing a midday meal scheme in Uttar Pradesh. Look at the Kashmiri journalists. They are in jail. Many of them under Public Safety Act, where you don't even get you don't get out for a year or two without, it's terrible. Nobody talks about them. Nobody talks for what Siddiq Kapur and his family went through, which I've documented in the book. I've mentioned it. I mean, these are the stories that make you angry. As I said, गुस्से में रहना चाहिए. I apologize to you for being angry, but
no, not at all.
I think journalists get angry on the wrong issues. हम लोग angry होते हैं, कोई नेता हमें इंटरव्यू नहीं देता. अरे भाड़ में जाए नेता. He won't give an interview, don't give it. Anger should come on the real issues.
Talking about media bias, you are probably one of the senior most journalists that we know who has seen the boom of TV news, the rise of TV news, the fall, the plateau, the everything. At times, there are anchors, journalists also from your network who are accused of bias. All the Tabligis, etc., who, those narratives have gone on most of the channels, including those affiliated to your network. On a scale of 1 to PR, where do you...
1 to?
PR. On a scale of 1 to being almost a PR body.
Okay.
Where do you see TV journalism as a whole today in this country?
Firstly, this bias word. I mean, if I call someone else biased, they'll also turn and point the finger, aap biased ho. So I don't even like to get into this Godi media, Darbari media and all these words. These are words that actually divide us even further. What are we doing to question those in power? And ask ourselves, are we going to be driven by fear? डर है यार कुछ हो जाएगा. I mean, दैनिक भास्कर का देखो, इतनी they did a wonderful story on COVID to expose how the bodies were floating in the Ganga. The very strong picture. within a week or two they had raids on them. ED aa gaya, IT aa gaya. I mean, who was there to defend them? I give the whole story of Prannoy Roy. I mean, imagine Prannoy Roy. हम तो बच्चे हैं आज, whatever we are is because of people like him and their foresight. They were the entrepreneurs. आप उसको रोक लेते हो एयरपोर्ट पे with a lookout notice as if he's some criminal. इस देश में criminal तो असली criminal को कोई touch नहीं करेगा. But you stop Prannoy Roy. And as it turned out, the immigration officer who stopped me met me in a plane and said, "Sir, I please apologize to Dr. Roy when you meet him. ये मेरा थे नहीं था, orders ऊपर से आए थे." और chronology समझिए उसकी. ED रेड्स होते हैं, CBI रेड होता है, उसको रोकते हो आप एयरपोर्ट पे, उसको बार बार ED और CBI के ऑफिस में बुलाते हो. 2022 company taken over by Adani. One of India's original TV companies taken over by Gautam Adani. At the end of the day today, who's protesting? In any other country, would there not have been some pushback? So there needs to be a pushback. You see, journalists are, and your Prannoy is a big name. If it could happen to him, imagine what happens to smaller people. Look at NewsClick. I mean, reporters के आप young interns के भी mobiles छीन लेते हो, या young trainees, young people's mobiles are taken away, laptops are taken away. Where is the protest? Or even when Gauri Lankesh was killed, there were people who were not out there to take a stronger stand than we did. And if we don't do that, वो फिर नेता तो तुमको खत्म कर देगा. The viewer, reader, they also know, public है, ये सब जानती है. ये आप लोगों के YouTube चैनल वगैरह क्यों इतने चलने लगे हैं? Because people are saying ये तो हमने देख लिया, ये तो सब एक जैसे है, कुछ नया ट्राई करते हैं. That's how, I mean, there must be truth told to power. I mean, some of the story, look at between 2009 and 14. मनमोहन सिंह सरकार की हमने धज्जियां उड़ाई थी. अब क्या होता है?
In fact, we were also one of the organizations that were raided in 2018. And we've been...
Yeah, Raghav. What happened to Raghav is extremely unfortunate. I worked very closely with Raghav. I mean, I owe him a huge debt at Network 18. And, he too suddenly found himself being targeted in the manner. And what happened in Prannoy Roy's case, and probably will happen in Raghav's case, 2024, 1 month ago, CBI says, अब हमारे पास कोई evidence नहीं है. We have no evidence. तो आपने आदमी को रोका देश के बाहर जाने के लिए, उसको रेड किया, उसको घर पे बुलाया, उसकी कंपनी was taken over. अब आप बोलते नहीं, we have nothing.
But networks as big as yours, they have all the resources to be able to counter those things. But now that we talk about smaller media houses like ours, or any of the digital contemporaries that we have, we do not have as many resources to be able to push back that hard, maybe. So do you think now it is upon the people, upon the subscribers to go towards a paid news subscription kind of format? Do you think that is the future?
See, number one, one of the things I know that you mentioned, India Today earlier as well. I mean, the very fact that India Today has had me for 10 years on a primetime show is in itself a sign that thoda to pushback hua. It can't be easy. Rajdeep Sardesai is... Kya kare?
Would you want to elaborate on that?
No. Look, they've given me more space than I could have imagined. And therefore, I'm very grateful in that sense to India Today. And I think that's the advantage of having owners who are prima facie, their main business is journalism. They can push back and they can do more. But at the same time, when I see some of India's biggest media houses, many of them will not even cover or touch this book because they will be fearful. Uska kya? Ironically, one BJP leader today rang me up, senior minister, I won't give his name. क्या लाजवाब किताब लिखी आपने? मैंने कहा सर ये आप मुझे पब्लिकली कहेंगे इसके तो वो बाद में बात करेंगे. But I was very happy to hear that because I know that he's someone who genuinely reads book. उसने ऐसा नहीं बोला and he has nothing to gain from me and me from him. But bigger media houses, you're right, have to show the light. If they don't, is paid news and subscription the way? यार Indians don't want to pay for news. वो चाहते हैं सब कुछ फ्री मिल जाए ना. उम्मीद पे दुनिया कायम है. अब आप सोचो यार क्या कंट्री है. 26 साल की वो संजना जाटा, we all did a story I say all on Quint also. But either way there are new voices, new voice of change. ये कंट्री में कुछ है, इसकी हवा में कुछ है कि यार this will, I still live in hope. I hope I see that new dawn soon where I see many more voices, particularly in the media. But I'm very impressed with all you young people. मुझे लगता है कि आप लोगों में ज़्यादा energy है मेरे ज़माने. We were still, compared to you, we are conformists.
You know, since you're talking about young people, I have seen how you have spoken about your first salary at TOI, which was 800 rupees.
Yeah, 850.
850 rupees.
800 या 850, I'm not sure. दोनों में से
And your editor, at that time, I think you said that working with TOI is the price.
हाँ, वो HR मैनेजर ने कहा था. मैंने उसको कहा था थोड़ा ज़्यादा नहीं तो कह रहे तुम टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में काम कर रहे हो.
But as the times are changing and as newer generations are coming in, this does not work for the newer generations.
क्या चाहिए तुमको?
Because wherever we go, people have become, with the influx of social media, with the rise in education, etc., they have become more aware. A, the work environment, and B, the pay parity are the two biggest, problems that the younger journalists who want to come into the profession, they have. Do you think these aspects will make the industry volatile in the future?
Look, I think younger journalists will face that challenge. You see, television changed it for us. जब हम प्रिंट में गए, ऐसा नहीं था कि कोई पैसा था इतना. हम लोग प्रिंट में अपने पैशन से गए. I could have been a lawyer and I should have been one probably. I would have probably earned as much as Dr. Abhishek Manu Singh before. For adjournments he charges a few lakhs. वो तो छोड़िए. But we didn't go and please, journalism was never a high-paying profession. TV changed it. Now the next generation has to build it through digital. You've got technology. It's both it's a double-edged sword because how do you build a revenue model around digital is a challenge not just in India but across the world. But I think solutions will come. I think there is no substitute for good content. Bad content, I think, will increasingly find no takers anymore. Nobody is going to just switch on to see 6 people shouting at each other. That format has gone, in my view. वो करते रहेंगे, लेकिन उसका जो the hold that it had, say, a decade ago, I don't see it anymore. वो करना पड़ता है, मजबूरी है. But I think even that's going to change.
Who has been your most interesting political interview off camera? Very interesting personality off the camera.
Bal Thackeray was interesting because I was a young journalist growing up in Mumbai. He was like, this larger than life figure. And the first time I met him, he said, interview chodo, first have a warm beer with me. I said, here I have come, interview ke liye taiyari, 10-12 question, wo bol raha hai, have warm beer with me. I remember Lalu Prasad, first time I interviewed, usne kaha nahi, ye interview yahan nahi hoga. We had set up in the Chief Minister's bungalow. He took us to the Gaushala, ye interview yahan hoga. I think long before Narendra Modi, Lalu also knew the power of the television image. Ye dono waise hain. They understand the power of the image. There have been lots of people. The one who really impressed me as a human was Nelson Mandela. I mean, there is something about Nelson Mandela which struck me. I mean, I never saw Gandhi but if there is one person I thought, yaar, isko dekhiye, kuch hai yaar, which Mahatma must have had. The rest, over the years, one has been privileged. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, even in his pauses, mein kuch tha. L.K. Advani was extremely combative. There have been lots of politicians over the years who've, in different forms. Narendra Modi ji, good interview. We had 1 or 2 good interviews. Agar mujhe de we'll break the net.
Well, I hope it comes to that, but now we are going to take some 3 to 4 quick questions from the people who are eager to talk to you. Can you pass the mic, please?
सर 2014 से पहले आपको कभी लगा कि पत्रकारिता करना मुश्किल है इस देश में?
नहीं, ये देखिए, मुझे एक बार प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस से शरद पवार जी ने, जब वो डिफेंस मिनिस्टर थे और मुंबई में राइट्स हुए थे, मैंने कुछ स्टोरीज किए थे, वो बड़े गुस्से में थे. उन्होंने कहा प्लीज लीव द प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस. ये उन्होंने कहा. एंड आई हैव अ गुड रिलेशनशिप विद पवार साहब. सिमिलरली देयर आर अदर पॉलिटिशियन टाइम टू टाइम उन्होंने कुछ कहा होगा, नोक झोंक तो होती रहती है. बट टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन, कभी ऐसा नहीं लगा कि यार ये स्टोरी अगर मैं करूं तो मेरी नौकरी चली जाएगी या मुझे तुरंत सस्पेंड किया जाएगा. ये जो हुआ ना, ये डर का जो एक तरह से एक वातावरण बन गया था पिछले 10 सालों में, वो मुझे लगता है मैंने पहले नहीं देखा है. ऐसा नहीं है कि कांग्रेस के ज़माने में उन्होंने कोशिश नहीं की पत्रकारों को दबाने की, वहाँ भी कोशिशें हुई, शायद वो असफल हुए या उनमें वो ये नहीं था कि इनको सबक सिखाना है. बट बाय एंड लार्ज जो ये जो टारगेटिंग होती है इंडिविजुअल्स की, ये बढ़ गई है. थोड़ा और मुश्किल हो गया है, ये मानना पड़ेगा. अच्छी पत्रकारिता करना मुश्किल हो गया, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है.
Hello sir, Abhilash, I head the fact checking department at the Quint. You touched upon the subjects, you talked about social media, you talked about micromanaging, you used the more dignified term, I used the F word. What about fake news in all the elections? And like My sort of follow-up question to that is, how does big media or mainstream media address the issue of misinformation and qualitative speeches, especially during the election campaigning? And it just gets publicized as it is often, and that reaches more people before it gets fact-checked and fact-checked by people like us, which doesn't reach that many people.
Yeah, I think big media needs fact-checking units in every office which can fact-check in real time, particularly in a 24/7 news channel. CNN International has done that. You saw during the US campaign, someone gives a speech, immediately one of the guys would come, tell you 5 things that were, are untrue. We don't do that in this country. I think we need to do that. What my bigger problem, linked to what you said, and this is another advantage why there's no level playing field, is the manner in which in real time with these WhatsApp groups, you can spread misinformation and disinformation in real time. The day before the Maharashtra election, there was this WhatsApp doing the rounds that Siddhi Vinayak temple is now going to be taken over by the Waqf board. I mean, there's my aunt or someone rings me up from Pune, hey, khara hai ka? I mean, how do I as a fact check unit then put it, by the time I put it out, damage is done, right? It's gone to thousands and thousands of WhatsApp groups. So misinformation, disinformation is a huge issue. But can it be resolved just by a fact checking unit? No. But at least your own organization, whichever it is, big media, can maintain a certain ethical standard by ensuring that, you have a strong fact checking unit.
Hi, so I work as a fact checker at the Quint. You spoke about the, the box 6 running in the prime time at night, 9 o'clock on TV. I wanted to know, there are individuals who've come on channels over and over again who have spread, some sort of hate, some sort of misinformation on channels, and they're still called. Why are news channels or news spaces still entertaining individuals who...
You're again asking a question that will take me through an ethical minefield. But no, I'll tell you what happens. And this is the reality. We want a BJP guest or a Congress guest. We have to ring up the Congress or BJP headquarters. They decide who to send. Right? My control over that spokesperson is very limited. I would agree with you that we should draw a line. If someone has consciously spread hate on the channel, that person should be told that, sorry, we will not have you if this is the language you're going to use. Now, but it is again up to the conscience of each channel. Who am I to dictate, why do you call these people? I will say don't call them. Someone else will say why not? Right? We are a free country. Who are you to boycott any individual for a different view? But I think if someone expresses views that are patently hateful and spiteful, they should be stopped from coming on a channel in the future.
राजीव सरदेसाई को हमने पत्रकार देखा, क्रिकेट के बारे में बात करते देखा, राइटर देखा. क्या राजदीप सरदेसाई फ्यूचर में पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन करने वाले हैं?
नहीं बॉस, एक परिवार में एक पॉलिटिशियन काफी होता है. नंबर 1. नंबर 2, मुझे देखिए, ये कहना गलत होगा कि इतने सालों से पॉलिटिक्स कवर करके ने कभी कभी ऐसा लगता है ये क्या कर रहे हैं, हम उनसे अच्छे कर सकते हैं. लेकिन पॉलिटिशियन बहुत मेहनती होते हैं. उनको बहुत, आई एडमायर पॉलिटिशियन बाय एंड लार्ज फॉर द वर्क दे पुट इन. मुश्किल है. मेरे पास ना उतने साधन हैं, ना मेरे पास उतनी मोटी चमड़ी है. Compromises are too much. In an ideal world, you'd like to think more good people will enter politics. अच्छे लोग आएंगे नेतागिरी में. पर मैंने देखा है कई लोग जो अच्छे भी थे, they made compromises. And that's disappointing, but also understandable. क्योंकि आप राजनीति करेंगे कैसे? दूसरे के पास इतने साधन है, 50x है आपसे. It's very difficult to be a नेता in India. तो यार अब 60 साल की उम्र हो गई. ये क्वेश्चन 20 साल पहले पूछ ले तो शायद मैं सोचता यार कुछ तो हो सकता है. टू बी ऑनेस्ट, यू नेवर से नेवर. कभी नेवर से नेवर नहीं, क्योंकि फिर आप क्विंट इसी को लेकर 10 साल मेरी किशोर कुमार की म्यूजिक, सचिन तेंदुलकर की बैटिंग देखकर मैं खुश होता हूँ.
Hello, sir. My name is Abhishek. I am also a fact checker. I am sorry, I'm going to add on to your ethical dilemma. So my question is, so whenever there is a panel, whenever there is an interview, why do journalists hesitate to correct somebody when they know that somebody is like the political leader is spreading misinformation or they are quoting a wrong figure? And ironically, your network has a fact checking department as well. And I'm sure the journalist also knows the right figure and everything. So why is there hesitation? Is it fear? Is it bias? What is it?
Look, I think we have a fact-checking unit and it does a reasonably good job. There are lots of good fact checks they've done. But now you're asking me, why do the journalists not fact check in real time? What made you think that we know the facts? I mean, that is आपको लगता है we are all knowing. It's very difficult, right? And I have to constantly cross-check. Someone in my ear occasionally will tell me, but it's not easy in real time. Even in America, I mean, it's not as if, Anderson Cooper is doing it in real time. It's the guy who comes in from the fact-checking unit after the speech or after the debate who says that was not true. Real time is tough. I think if we press the pause button, we can do more fact-checking. And I think one way is to have someone from the fact-checking unit in the PCR. Telling you, sir, that's wrong. He's right. And then have the courage to tell, sorry, you're lying. Or that's not true. So I think we do try that, but we don't do it often enough.
One last question.
Yes, Himanshi, you can have the last question.
This is slightly personal also. In your final chapter, you mentioned, since we were talking about fake news, reminds me of Amit Malvi. So you've mentioned how you had to eventually block Mr. Malviya because he was sending offensive messages on WhatsApp as well. So that goes beyond just, having a different ideology or disagreeing with you on certain facts. And despite that, we've seen until as recently as in during results for the Maharashtra and Jharkhand assembly elections, that he was on a panel where you were there. So, where do you draw that line? Where do you decide that this person should not be platformed by the channel, or at least platformed by the channel on a show where I am hosting? Because this is not about him, this is not about freedom of speech anymore. He did cross a line, I think.
No, he's crossed a line possibly with me. He hasn't crossed a line with the channel. I mean, if he's still his party's social media head, he's still his party's spokesperson. I don't believe in this cancel culture that, ban so-and-so. Please, Mr. Malviya is welcome to come. He's a relatively intelligent man. He should be allowed to come and, express his views on a subject. I have no problem with that. What he says to me personally on my WhatsApp or, how he sort of tries to target me, I think it shows him up more than me. I don't see Amit Malvi as my enemy. He sees me as his enemy. That's his problem, right? And if I was in public life and did that, I think that's, pretty low. I have never stooped, I in fact offered him once Mysore Park during the Karnataka elections. I didn't think that we would have, perhaps when I grew up, the likes of Malviya playing such a major role in politics, influencing even an Amit Shah not to give an interview to me in the Bengal campaign. Good luck to him. I hope that changes. I hope, wiser heads prevail on all sides. Good luck to Mr. Malviya. I hope he, who knows who, ever since Mr. Modi in 1990 first met me, he was organizing fax machines for us in that Rath Yatra and press conferences. He's today a 3-time Prime Minister. Yeah. Who knows, Mr. Malviya could be the next Home Minister one day. You'll clip that, the BJP IT cell will clip that now and say, Malviya is Home Minister. Well, that's another...
Well, that was a wonderful conversation. Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai, thank you so much for coming here. Thank you so much for being such a sport with all the questions. And thank you so much for inspiring so many people. A big round of applause for Mr. Sardesai. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the Quint team. As I said, most of you are born after I did journalism. So if there is any message I've got from this gathering, it's time to retire. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.